Are you struggling in the area of relationships, health, or finances? Today we're going to talk about leveling up your self-esteem. Your personal self-esteem is literally the emotional foundation stone for everything else that you're going to do today or not do today. And I'm 60 years old, so I've had a lot of up and down periods of my life. I've had many destructive episodes, and I've had many rebirth chapters. So I speak from the voice of experience. I actually published a book that's on Amazon.com if you're interested. And in this book, I chronicle some of the ups and downs of going through 2 divorces and finally ending up in my 3rd solid marriage. And throughout that period, it was a lot of up and downs and a lot of deep emotional work. And as I say, self-esteem is your foundational, emotional cornerstone of your life. And the most important life skill you can have is the ability to pivot when it's time to pivot, when it's time to make a change. And we're going to go over all of that in this video, so stay tuned. In the 1990s, I was remodeling houses in San Francisco. It was a good time to buy houses, fix them up, and sell them. We ended up in a project above the Castro, up in the hills with a big view of the bay, 270-degree views. I dug down, I built up, I did an addition. We ended up with a 4,000 square foot house, and that was right around the time of the internet.com crash in 2001. The stock market crashed, and then the real estate market crashed, and so we ended up moving into that house. Then in November of 2003, I ended up on a trip to Nepal, went there with my friend Bill, and I hiked to the bottom of Mount Everest. Now, the bottom of Mount Everest is the highest elevation I've ever been. I've done a lot of backpacking, a lot of rock climbing, but 19,000 feet is the highest elevation I've ever been at the very bottom of the foot of Mount Everest. And when I got back from that trip, it was time to make a change. It was time for a new chapter in my life. It was time for the big pivot. And that's when I separated from my wife and then eventually divorced her. We'd had a 21-year relationship. At the time, my daughter was 8 years old, but it was time for me to make that shift, and I did. So I'm going to call that a destructive episode in my life where things got ripped apart. And kind of like remodeling old houses. First you go in, you rip the thing apart, and then you put it back together again better than it ever was. And that's kind of how the trajectory of my life has been over and over and over again. And you've probably had a similar experience yourself. So to make a change in life means that it's going to be time to walk through the desert alone. Sometimes you got to be by yourself. You're going to leave friends and relationships and jobs. You're going to leave certain things behind. You're going to walk by yourself and you're going to create a new life. And that's what the pivot looks like. It looks like walking alone through the desert. And it also looks like embracing the uncomfortableness of life, embracing new things you're not accustomed to, feelings and old emotional baggage you've been pushing away and burying. They may also come to the surface. So it's a time to embrace the uncomfortableness. After I separated from my first wife, I knew I wanted to start dating again. That was going to be important to me. But I also had the inner knowing that before I start dating again, I got to do some inner work on me. As a guy who is working in construction, flipping houses, I was accustomed to working 50 and 60-hour weeks. I was someone who ran a lot, rock climbed, rode bicycles. I was very athletic. I had a whole lifestyle set up that was very much in my body, very physical, very tactile, touching the earth, touching buildings, interacting with the physical world. But I was also dead Ted inside. And so I knew I needed to do something to deal with this dead Ted. And I found myself in April of 2004 at an intimate experiential workshop at Harbin Hot Springs, which is a beautiful clothing optional hot springs in Northern California. And at this 2.5-day workshop, it was called Love, Intimacy, and Sexuality. And it was literally like someone took a crowbar and just ripped my heart open. And it was just such an impactful experience that I would call that the beginning of a new rebirth chapter for me right there. That experience, even to this day, I can still remember what that felt like and how it felt to open up my heart and be expressive and talk to people and let the playful boy inside me sneak out again. It was just such a huge, impactful rebirth chapter. And it reminds me of 2 laws for living life on this earth. There's a lot more than 2, but here's the first 2 that I think are key. And law number 1 is that this planet is a planet of pain and destruction. And if you look at your life, and like I said, I'm 60 years old, when you get to this point in your life, you see it's true that there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of destruction. That's law number 1. But law number 2 is that this is a planet of rebirth. And it goes hand in hand. It's like 2 sides of the hand, 2 sides of the coin. It's just part of the great cycle of life, which is it's a planet of pain and destruction. It's a planet of rebirth. Then in December of 2004, I jumped into the Hoffman process, which is a week-long deep dive into deep emotional work. And as powerful and as impactful as that workshop had been in April, this was like 1,000 times that. It was like just digging into old childhood baggage I hadn't dealt with and that was running my life, even digging into some of my ancestral baggage that had been carried through me and through epigenetics from my mother and my grandparents. And I started clearing some of this old emotional baggage out, and it was huge. And then I also remember in June of 2005, I reached a point where I'd finalized the divorce from my wife. That we finally got the final decree. We'd sold that house I had mentioned on Ord Street for $1 million profit. And I broke up with the girlfriend I was dating at the time, and that all happened in the course of 1 week. And as exciting as that was, and as dramatic as that was, I'll call that another destructive episode in my life. Because I think I was kind of riding at peak at that moment, and things in some ways went downhill from there. In August of 2005, I discovered this tiny town in Colorado, southwest Colorado, called Pagosa Springs. And it was like I wanted to get out of the big city. I wanted to leave San Francisco. Too much traffic, too much stress. I needed a restart, a new rebirth. And I actually talked my ex-wife and my daughter into moving from California all the way to tiny town Colorado in Pagosa Springs. And we lived there for 5.5 years. And that was a rebirth and destructive set of experiences as well. As it turned out, I ended up dating someone there who became my second wife. And also at that time, when we left San Francisco, I sold my real estate at the peak of the market in 2005. And we moved to Colorado. I bought real estate at the peak of the market in 2005, and as you'll recall, we then had a stock market crash and a bank crash and real estate crash in 2008. I lost my shirt. I eventually filed for bankruptcy after that. So that was another destructive episode in my life. But at around exactly that same time, I also met the woman who would later become my second wife. And so that was, in a way, a rebirth chapter as well. Around that time, I did some more deep emotional workshops. I did a workshop called the Vision Seminar, the Challenge Seminar, and it was around a group of people who was doing some deep emotional work. So I was glad to be part of that. But the second marriage, as it turned out, was more like a rebound marriage. After bankruptcy in Colorado, I moved back to California. I figured it was easier to get on my feet again financially in California, where I was networked better with people, knew my way around. And we moved back to California, but that second marriage didn't last long, and we got divorced. And so another destructive episode. And after that destructive episode of the second divorce, I was like, okay, I got to take a time out. I got to do some personal work on me. I took some me time, and I began recording some videos. I began learning how to get in front of a camera like this and speak authentically and just speak my truth, just letting it flow out of me without a script. I began writing a book, the book that you just saw, and I took a intensive 6-month life coaching program, which ended up being a deep emotional dive as well. So I began doing a lot of deep personal emotional work again, and that led to me meeting Carol, who is my current wife. And we met in July of 2014, and we've gotten married since, and we've got this great relationship. And I say that it's been a great relationship based on the fact that I've done a lot of personal work on myself. I've cleared out a lot of the emotional baggage. I've cleared out a lot of the dead Ted that used to be running me. And along the way, I've built up my self-esteem. Carol and I bought this house that I'm sitting in right now. We did an extensive remodel. I've done a number of remodels for other people as a general contractor for several years. And now I get to be full-time in front of this camera and on my computer, sharing with people like you some of the life lessons I've learned along the way, and being a guide for others who are also going through the journey of emotional awakening, who are wanting to access their source of creativity, who are wanting to up their game of self-expression, and in particular, who are wanting to level up their sense of self-esteem, because self-esteem is the foundation stone for everything else that you're going to do. So I'm going to give you 5 steps for changing your trajectory in life. If you're at a point in life where you've reached a destructive episode or destructive episodes, and you're ready to move into a rebirth chapter, then you're going to need to know how to take the steps necessary to create something new, to kind of shift your trajectory away from what you were doing and who you were being, and into this new person that you're ready to be now. And the first step that I'll give you is to change small daily habits. I remember around the time I was separating from my second wife and getting ready to step into a divorce with her. Very difficult. I was very reluctant. It was very much a heartbreak kind of situation for me. Didn't want to move into it. But what I did do is I got back into a running routine. On and off throughout my adult life, I've been a regular runner. Periods of running almost every day, some periods where I don't. So this was a point in life where I'm ready to make the pivot, going to change a habit. And the change of the habit was I'm getting back into a running routine. I ran on the beach in Southern California almost every day, 5 miles, 7 miles. And I can tell you just that change in that one small habit literally changed my life. The second step towards changing your trajectory is to change the story that you tell yourself and the story that you're telling to other people. It's like, oh, I'm in this marriage and she's doing this and they're doing that. If you want a different story, if you want to step into a new story, the first thing you got to do is start changing the story that you're chattering to yourself and change the story that you're chattering to other people. It's like, no, I'm stepping into something new. I'm doing a lot of personal work on myself. I'm clearing out some of my old emotional baggage. You know, whatever the story is that works for you, that's accurate for you, that empowers you. But if you want a different story, you need to begin articulating a different story to yourself in here and also to the people around you. The third step to making a shift in your life, a shift in your trajectory, is to start journaling every morning. Julia Cameron, in her book, The Artist's Way, talks about the morning pages and how if you can wake up first thing in the morning every morning, and first thing you do is you grab your journal and write 2 pages, and it's cursive is the best. I learned cursive in school. I don't know if you did, but if you can write in cursive, write with your hand. Don't use a computer. But if you can write in cursive, there's something deeply cathartic in it. It's a deep way of connecting with your body. And you can do some deep emotional work just by journaling every morning. You know, when you first started, be like, I don't know what to write. This is stupid. I don't know what to say. Journal that. I don't know what to write. This is stupid. I don't know what to say. Just journal whatever thoughts are coming into your head, whatever feelings. My stomach hurts. I feel like crap. I feel tight. I'm feeling pretty calm. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, and just vomiting it onto the page using your handwriting and ideally cursive and just getting it out. And that vomiting onto the page, after a few days and definitely after a few weeks, you're going to see what a powerful, cathartic experience that is to do 2 pages of handwritten, free-form journaling every morning. And then the fourth practical step I'll give you when you're ready to pivot, when you're ready to change the trajectory of your life, is you need to do some deep emotional work. We all need to do deep emotional work. It's never a one-time thing. It's always about, let's pull the next couple layers of this onion off. And when I'm talking about deep emotional work, you can't think your way through the deep emotional work. You need to hook yourself up with a qualified professional. Like right now, as a matter of fact, I recently started working with a psychotherapist. Had never done a one-on-one psychotherapist thing before. I've done a number of deep dive experiential workshops. I've done some life coaching work with several different high-powered life coaches, but I've never done like the more standard therapy thing, and it's working pretty well for me right now because I'm at a place where I'm ready to take that next deeper cut, that next deeper dive into myself, and to shed a few more layers. And so if you're ready to do some deep emotional work, you need to find yourself a qualified listener. You need to find someone who's got some professional skills. You need to find yourself in an environment where someone will guide you into feeling the feelings, because the only way you can shed some of this old emotional baggage, the only way you can heal it is you got to feel it. You got to feel it to heal it. And then the fifth practical step for changing the trajectory of your life, for making that pivot, is obviously to take action. And when I say take action, sometimes taking the wrong action is better than taking no action at all. What a lot of us like to do is we like to think about, well, maybe I'll do this, and maybe I'll do that. And sometimes we get stuck in woulda, shoulda, and coulda, and thinking about it, and well, when's the right time, and I'm not ready. But when you're ready to pivot, you got to take some steps, and it's okay. And not only is it okay, but I recommend you take some steps, even if they're steps in the wrong direction. Make some mistakes, take some action, even if it's the wrong action. So that reminds me of another one of these laws for living life. We are not meant to carry our dead with us. And that sounds like a mouthful. What we're supposed to do with our dead is we're supposed to bury them, perform a ritual, grieve them, and then leave them and move on. And when I say we're not meant to carry our dead, that could apply to an old relationship that you've grown out of, an old job that you've grown out of, old habits that no longer serve you. It could mean you're actually are grieving someone who's passed on. Whatever that means for you, and you know what it means for you, do not put your dead on your back and try to carry them into the next chapter of your life. We're not meant to carry our dead with us. What we're meant to do is, whatever our dead is, whoever our dead is, we bury them, we grieve them, and that grieving needs to go on as long as it needs to go on. We perform a ritual, and then when it's time to move on, we move on, and we leave the dead behind. So to wrap up, I'm just going to quickly mention this book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. It's a classic. It's been around for decades. And the 6 pillars that he mentions are, number 1, the practice of living consciously. You know, if you or I are going off to a job every day that we hate, and we're just kind of forcing our way through it, and we come home and sit on the sofa and eat chips and numb out in front of the TV, and we've got a partner, a spouse, someone we're living with, and we don't talk to them. We're just kind of numb and dead. And trust me, I've had chapters of my life where I've been just like that. Then that's called living unconsciously. But if we want to up the level of our self-esteem, we need to step into a daily practice of living consciously, of consciously improving the conversation that we're having with our partner, of consciously figuring out a way to become passionate about and loving the job or the business we're in, or else leaving it, saying, okay, this doesn't serve me. I'm not serving it. This is not a good fit. I'm being a dead Ted here. Don't be a dead Ted. If you're in a job or a business in which you're just showing up unconsciously and being dead, if you're in a relationship where you're dead, either shift it completely or get out of it completely, one or the other. And so we practice on a daily basis, living consciously, treating our body better. What do I need to do for exercise? What do I need to do to feed myself? What do I need to do to be more conscious and aware? Is watching this stupid TV show making me more or less conscious? So the practice of living consciously is something that we do every day. It's like exercise. Just because you did it last week, you still got to do it this week. You still got to do it today. And it's a practice. You're just going to slowly get yourself better and better at it. Then number 2 in this book is the practice of self-acceptance. You got to learn to love yourself where you're at, how you're being, and who you are right now. You may have a goal. It's like, I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be more like this. I'm going to change that. I want to start this business. I want to become more self-expressive. I want to be more creative. I want to find ways to express my creativity. Then great. Those are all good goals. But first, we need to accept and allow and embrace, this is who I am right now. This is what I'm doing. This is the person I'm being. And this is my situation. And only when we come to the point of being able to love and embrace who we are right now, does that give us the freedom to then step towards, to make that pivot to something else. The third practice in these 6 pillars is the practice of self-responsibility. I think I've been pretty good at this for much of my life. The opposite of self-responsibility is being a victim. It's like, well, she doesn't let me do this, and it's because I'm married to her that blah, blah, blah. No, it's like we were all born into a certain set of circumstances. Crazy things happen. We're born in a place and a time and certain opportunities and certain lack of opportunities, but that's not the point. The point is, what are you going to do with what you've been given? And so the practice of self-responsibility is, I'm the one who's reacting to my circumstances and the situation. I might not be able to change the circumstances necessarily. I might not be able to change the way my country is or the way my town is, but I can certainly change the way I'm reacting to it. I might not be able to change my family. I might not be able to change my spouse, but I can change the way I'm reacting to it. And in the case of a job or a spouse, that is something that's within my power to change. Maybe I should be changing those things. So the practice of self-responsibility is the practice of ownership, of I'm the one who's totally responsible for everything that's happening in my life, even the things that are out of my control, I'm going to own it as I take responsibility. Why? Because I say so. Why? Because that empowers me. So the practice of self-responsibility is the practice of personal empowerment. And then the fourth pillar is the practice of self-assertiveness. Once we decide we're going to step into a bigger way of playing life, once we decide that we're going to pursue our dreams and our goals, then we need to assert ourselves. Your friends, your family, the people you're around, the people you're working with, they might not like that you're taking off and you're busting out and you're going to bust a move and do something different. It doesn't matter. You need to assert who you are. You need to stand on your own 2 feet and say, no, this is who I really am. Maybe I was hiding out before, but I'm not hiding out any longer. This is who I am. This is what I have to express. This is the creativity that's running through me. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to express what wants to be expressed through me. And that takes courage and that takes guts. And you got to stand up on your own 2 feet to do that. Practice number 5 is the practice of living purposefully. Are you living a purpose-driven, mission-driven life? If you were to sit down quietly and journal every day for a month, what would you say is your purpose in life? Why are you here? What is your mission in life? What are you doing here on this planet when it's your last moments on the planet and you're breathing your last breath? What was it that you came to give and to contribute to this planet, to this world? And are you doing that? And so the practice of living purposefully is to take baby steps, incremental steps. Even if it's taking the wrong steps, start moving towards it. Are you living a purpose-driven life? And if not, what can you do today to take one small baby step in the direction of your life purpose? And the sixth and final pillar of this book is the practice of personal integrity. Am I speaking my truth? Am I living consistently with what I'm saying? Is who I say I am and who I am being the same thing? Am I following my own rules for life? Or am I being full of BS? Am I a BS speaker or am I a truth speaker? And am I speaking and breathing truth and integrity into my life, or am I shrinking as I become less and less integrous? So those are the 6 pillars in the book, worth mentioning. It's probably its own video to talk about the book. Those 6 practices are living consciously, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, living purposefully, and personal integrity. And so just to wrap up, the 5 action steps I gave you for making the pivot in your life is, number 1, break small habits. What are you going to do differently today? What little baby step can you do today that's different from yesterday and that you'll do again tomorrow? What is the baby step you're going to take today? Number 2 is changing your story to yourself and others. What's the story you're telling yourself up in here? What's the story that you're articulating out to others? Change that story. Number 3, journaling. Can you write in a journal 2 pages, handwritten, every day? Beautiful, powerful, cathartic exercise. Number 4 is doing deep emotional work with a qualified listener. Get yourself a professional therapist. Get yourself into a high quality, deep emotional workshop. Whatever it takes, do your own deep emotional work. And then number 5, take action. Even if it's the wrong action, don't just sit there. Don't just think about it. Take action. Take a baby step today. I hope this helps you. This is all about us building our self-esteem. And for me, self-esteem is literally the true north of my compass. I can tell when I'm on track in life by how it feels in my body, how it feels in terms of my self-esteem. If my self-esteem feels good and feels strong, I know I'm headed in the right direction. If if I'm feeling smaller and lesser about myself, then that's my guide, that's my warning sign to me that I've deviated off the path. And what do I have to do to get back on track with my own true north, to be true to my own self-expression, my own creativity, and to be true to my own sense of self-esteem?